Strachan again. Bowman. That's a good run from him. Pulled that back very well indeed. And the goal for McStay. Paul McStay scores his 8th goal for Scotland. And it was all set up by the debut boy, Dave Bowman. A splendid piece of play from him.
Well, Dave Bowman's been brought into the side to win the ball and give it to players, but what about this for a bit of playmaking himself? Past the defender, instead of blasting at a cross goal, he picks out Paul McStay wonderfully well, and a terrific finish from Paul. Great bit of play here by Davy Bowman. Intelligent play, cuts it back instead of putting it into the crowded goal mouth, and Paul McStay doesn't half whack it with his right foot. So that should settle Scotland down a bit.
Taking the eye in that midfield to Pataya, the sweeper, who's got into a more advanced position and gets it through to Tarkio. Lina, first time cross from him, and Litmanen has scored. Oh, that was a very good goal indeed from Finland. The first time volley from this youngster that we've been talking about, and suddenly out of nowhere Finland are level.
Yeah, well, we've had one or two scares already, and we said that maybe the Scotland defence isn't quite as tight as what it should be, and this is a well-controlled volley. Doesn't blast it, just guides it into the bottom right-hand corner. Really gave Andy Gorham no chance.
Yeah, this is a really good goal, isn't it?
Yeah, that is a terrific bit of finishing, but once again, question marks about the defending in the Scotland back four. We had one or two scares earlier, and really haven't took any warning from that. We've paid the price.
On Sky Sports at 4:30 this afternoon. We're in the middle of Scotland against Finland, 1-1, Andy Gray at half-time.
The curse of the minnow again on Scotland.
Well, maybe not quite yet, but...
so far. To be fair, Scotland haven't been at their best. I think that has to be said. But when the first goal went in, I honestly did expect them to settle and go on and really overturn the Finnish side. But, I mean, what a... exceptionally well. And normally a player would just knock this into the box, but I think he actually tries to play it to John Collins there, but Paul McStay's onto it like a flash, and that's a great finish.
What we didn't see there was the pace that Gordon Strachan injected just prior to that goal, which had been missing, hadn't it?
I think Scotland have played at too casual a pace at times. I'd like to see them up the tempo of the game. That ball had gone out for a throw-in. Gordon Strachan sprinted after it, threw it in. David Bowman got hold of it, knocked it across. And that Paul McStay did there what I don't think he does enough of. I think he's got a tremendous shooting ability, and he's a great striker of the ball, and I'd like to see Paul McStay do a lot more of that. I really would. It would benefit not only his club side, it would benefit Scotland as well. He's certainly capable of doing it.
That was 1-0. John Robertson had a very good chance to make it 2-0 shortly after a free header inside the 6-yard box. Then Finland hit the post. It was coming the equaliser, wasn't it?
Yes, and it seems strange to say that, but Finland, as you say, had missed two very, very good chances, probably the two best chances in the match. But this young lad who scores here, Jari Litmanen, had really come into the game after Scotland scored. But look at him just walk into the penalty area, Richard. You can't do that at international level.
He's come, 10-15 yards?
It's a beautifully controlled volley, honestly. And when you watch it, he doesn't just swing a leg at it, he kind of guides it. I mean, and if he's picked that spot, that's a quite magnificent finish. But it had been threatening, and I find that quite amazing. They've actually passed the ball about better than us in the last third where it mattered. I think we've given it away too often. I'd also like to see Andy Gorham throw it out a bit more. What surprised me is that every time Andy Gorham, almost every time he's got it, he's kicked it long. Now, against sides like Finland, who will concede ground to you, I'd like to see him throw it to the full-backs, throw it to the centre-backs, and go on, pass it about a bit, get some confidence, and let's try and build our way through, because they are giants at the back.
Well, I was going to say they'll concede ground to you, and they've also got two very big central defenders that'll swallow those balls all day, won't they?
Yeah, and we've got to work a little bit more at passing it about. So I hope in second half, whether it's Gordon Marshall or Andy Gorham, that they start to throw it out to the full-backs and get a bit of passing going.
1-1 at half-time. We've got the whole of the second half coming up live here on Sky Sports. Back after. Welcome back. 1-1 at Hampden. Coming up, highlights of that match between Czechoslovakia and England that we saw live here on Sky Sports a little earlier this afternoon. So,
there's a lot you can say about that, pal, I'm afraid. It's one best forgotten, I think, as far as Scotland are concerned. I don't see what Andy Roxburgh would have learned from that game at all. Except that he's got to play, or his team are going to have to play an awful lot better than that, Richard. At the end of the day, I'm quite happy we got away with a 1-1, because we could so easily have lost the game.
You could have done. Mitsui Patalainen had a couple of very good chances, actually, in that second half,
Yes, he didn't have. I mean, this is a great example of how to attack a ball in a penalty area, to be fair. I mean, he launches himself at that. And Andy Gorham, who for me looked a little bit shaky first half, really produces what is a tremendous save. Pure instinct. Pure instinct.
From the resulting corner.
Yeah, I mean, it's Mixu Patalainen again, and this is it. This is a great chance. I mean, Andy Gorham spreads himself very well here and doesn't give him an awful lot to hit, but that's 6 inches away from embarrassing Andy Roxburgh, really, and in Scotland.
Those are the match facts. Tell our own story.
It tells us that it was a pretty even game, doesn't it? In fact, Finland winning twice as many corners as Scotland, and I think that shows the kind of pressure that they put in Scotland that I don't think anyone expected, Richard.
Just thinking about Patalainen screaming that one past the far post, a really classy finisher might have just tried to nick that in, would he?
Well, he ain't a bad finish. It wasn't his strongest side. He prefers it on his left foot, and perhaps that was the Scotland's advantage there. But as Gordon McQueen quite rightly said, best one forgotten, Richard, I'm afraid.
Yeah, in a season when we play so many games, it does make you wonder about the necessity of matches that well, can take a toll, if nothing else.
I think the more you get into international football, the more games you play. I'm one now that unless you're going to get a real prestigious friendly, a real top club over to play, a top country over to play, I think some of these games against the little countries aren't really worth the trouble at times, honestly.
Well, stay with us. We've got the highlights coming up from Prague, Czechoslovakia, England, and right after the break we'll be speaking to Andy Roxburgh.